Survivors, seekers, and thrivers, welcome to Transcending Trauma, a spiritual odyssey. I'm Shari Leigh Roberts, living proof that transformation is real. Get ready for powerful insights, inspiring stories, and a little laughter along the way.
Welcome back. I have a fascinating guest today, Dr. Bobbi Lambert, co-founder of Confidante in San Francisco Bay Area human resources consulting company specializes in prevention and management of disruptive workplace behaviors and traumatic events. Also, a multi-author of her first book is From Trauma to Healing, Seeking Solace and Safe Places to Fall. He has also written a fictional book that is currently being edited and will be published this year. She has a doctorate in behavioral science and has a lot to tell with that. Welcome. Thank you for making time. I cannot wait to talk with you, hear your story.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me and your interest in my career and my life. My work has been over the years mostly in the workplace, working for employers, dealing with any kinds of inappropriate, threatening kinds of behaviors or issues in the workplace between people or with the public. I got a real start to my career after a major workplace violence event that occurred in San Francisco, California, near where I live. Me at a law firm. It was dealing with that incident that tied my own trauma back into it and showed me a new path for my work, because it was very clear that I was the right person to be in this situation because of what I had gone through in the past.
And you tell us about that.
Yeah, there is a law firm in San Francisco. At the time, I was working for a company called U.S. Behavioral Health, which manages employee assistance programs and provides managed health care services to employers. And this law firm, Pettit and Martin, was a client of my company, and I was doing some work for them. Over the 4th of July weekend, the beginning of the 4th of July weekend, I got a call when I was coming home from work in my car from the head of the HR department at this law firm that there was actually a shooter in their offices who had confronted a group of people sitting in a glassed-in conference room in this high-rise, beautiful building in San Francisco, and had a gun and started shooting people. I was on the phone with her for several hours, and that evening we kind of pieced together, that this was an ex-client of the firm from 10 or 12 years ago. They hadn't heard from him, who carried this grudge and saw that his life fell apart and everything went wrong and blamed it on a lawyer in the firm that wasn't even there. The next day, myself and I put a team of counselors together to go over to the law firm and work with the managing partners, provide group and kind of one-on-one counseling for these people that were dealing with this violent situation and had people that had died, I think 9 people died that day, including including the shooter. So it was one of the worst situations of workplace violence. And it wasn't that I really knew how to deal with that because I'd never been in that situation before. It's one of those things that you're the one there and you do everything that you can, and the need is great, the trauma is great. And it turned out the following day that we had arranged for one of the local hotels to have a big conference room where we could bring people together, kind of do what they call a traumatic stress debriefing kind of session, and also have police and people that could give information about what was going on and what had happened and those sorts of things. And I was standing up on the stage, kind of leaning against the wall with one of the people that work with me and watching these hundreds of people just kind of stream into this room. And I, was thinking, what in the world am I going to say to these people to bring, any comfort or calm, or, what do I do? What do you do? And, when I finally did get up there, what came out of me was really, I don't know what the answers are or really what to say, but I can be here with you because I've been where you've been. That went back to my own father many years before had been murdered. And so I had been through that trauma myself on a personal level. And it was what drove me back to school and sort of changed my career and put me in the position that I was in to be able to be there. So it's one of those days when your life kind of comes full circle.
About your dad, did you witness his murder?
No, I did not, but my mother did. My parents, we lived I was grown and married at the time in my early 30s. My parents lived in a nice area in San Francisco, and they had been to a party, and it was about 10 o'clock, and they were walking our dog, which they always did. And they were set upon by four young men, like 14, 15 years old. And they just shot my dad. Why they didn't shoot my mother, I really don't know.
What year did that happen?
That was in 1976, so a long time ago.
You, in your early 30s, is that what drove you to get into this field?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Take us through that. Your dad is murdered, and I cannot even imagine this. Your mom, I just can't. You hear that has happened. What do you do?
Well, I mean, our lives were changed forever. It's one of those things that happens in life where, everything you believed in, thought was true one day is turned upside down the next day. And in whatever way you can, I guess you sort of start over and try to pick up your lives. So, I mean, we moved out of San Francisco pretty shortly thereafter to Marin County and tried to start over. I had been working with my dad. He had an insurance business, so I sold his business. It certainly all impacted the relationships in our family, with my siblings. Everybody has nobody's the same. Nobody has no reaction, but how we all react to trauma is very, very different. But for me, I ended up going back to school, studying psychology, but I always wanted to go. I never wanted to be a therapist or get a clinical degree. I always wanted to go back into the workplace because that's sort of where my roots were. So, in my studies, I was looking for ways to bring my work into workplaces. And so I did end up getting this job at US Behavioral Health, where we provided counseling and consulting services services to businesses, and I was more on the consulting side, so that for our clients, when there was, for instance, a difficult termination where they thought somebody might act out violently, or there was discord among a group of people, I would be brought in to help resolve and address the issues in the relationships. And then, of course, when this violent event happened at Pettit and Martin, I was called in to deal with that. And I ended up working with them pretty long term for almost 18 months to try to, help get the firm back on its feet and deal with the trauma. And in the end, the firm closed its doors. It just could not fully cover from the trauma and loss that occurred there. After that, I came to the attention of a large grocery business, Wegmans Food Markets on the East Coast. If you're not from the East Coast of San Francisco, the head of their, what they call asset protection or loss prevention, called me and basically said, workplace violence, we don't want it to happen here. Tell us what to do. And it was just had a very long-term relationship with them, and developed a prevention program and put that in place, traveled back and forth a lot, helped them deal with incidents. And I think they have like 50,000 employees right now. So when you have that many employees, you have situations with employees, customers that come up. Gratefully, we never lost anybody. Gratefully, nobody ever died. I worked with Wegmans for years and years, but that workplace violence event kind of launched my career as an expert in that field. Not something you ask for, but something that comes to you. Now I deal less and less with workplace violence and more with trying to prevent bad things from happening.
Excellent. Talk about how you are working more in the preventative realm.
I think in two pretty specific ways, I would say. Doing more executive counseling and consulting, so working with executives, leaderships in an organization or a partnership, and helping them deal with issues before they get out of hand and out of control, like discord among certain people or behavioral kind of issues with someone who's acting out in the workplace. We sometimes help with hiring and help them hire, which is where I think it starts, hiring the right people, hiring compatible people, doing all your due diligence before you even bring somebody on. And so that's one arena. The other arena where we do a lot of work now is workplace investigations. So investigations into potential harassment, discrimination, bullying, different kind of issues that come up, so that when a complaint surfaces, we can help that company. And a lot of our work comes through lawyers for work with their clients. That's one of our most important referral sources. So an issue or a complaint is made within an organization, and then the lawyer or the company will bring it to us, and then we will investigate, which, involves maybe reviewing documentation, the emails, things that have gone back and forth between people, and interviewing key individuals, and then getting a feel, which I think is one of my own intuitive skills, is sort of looking at complex issues and making sense.
You mentioned your intuitive abilities. I want to hear more about how you use those in helping your client.
I seem to have an ability to look, like I was starting to say, at complex situations and making sense out of them. So I'm able to take in a lot of information, then sort through it, make sense out of it, figure out who's playing what role in it and what needs to happen to resolve. I feel like somebody could look at the same information and not in a way.
Yeah. How do you hear, read, or do you how is it that you know what you know?
That's a good question. I always try to, it's not like I hear things or see, things in the way that I think we often think about psychic abilities, but it's like a knowing. It's like a,
Yes, your favorite team channels key information to you. You're open and suddenly, like you said, you just know. Oh, that is powerful. Yeah, you always had that ability.
that's a really good question. Um, Was it always there in some way? Maybe. Did I know it or use it? Not really, but I was always very sensitive to what was happening around me, which wasn't always good in my family growing up. There were a lot of raised voices in my house. It's nothing physical, but a lot of raised voices. And so I think I became very quiet inside and in my demeanor. And so I think it was in that quiet that I could kind of sense what was going on. But that developed a lot more over the years, where I think in the 90s, when I did the work at Pettit and Martin and kind of learned what I was capable of and started working these really complex cases, that I started to use those skills a lot more.
During that time, did you go through a healing journey, uncovering the deep issues from childhood and generational trauma and different things? Is that when you began hearing were confident in what you heard or knew?
Yeah, I think I always, for as long as I can remember, have been, trying different kinds of therapies and modalities and workshops and trainings, to get to an understanding about what I'd gone through and also to develop the different skills that I had. I would say that a lot of my healing I started going to this wonderful place in Sedona, Arizona called Enchantment, and they have this spa called Miyamo, and they have some of the most remarkable professionals from all over the world, from body work to psychological work to spiritual work, whatever. But I went through a really intense period and visited there frequently. And then I think, really writing my book, it was a huge part of my healing. I love to write. I journal every day. It's a huge, important thing to me. So it was kind of natural. I was going to write, but I think a lot of my healing happened from my book.
It is one of the most cathartic things, as well as the most difficult things we can do. I have also written about my trauma and healing journey. Share with us your heading of your book.
Book From Trauma to Healing is autobiographical in ways, but it's much bigger than that. And so I had written what I thought was going to be kind of an autobiography. This is my life, and I think I've had an interesting life. But I had a good friend at the time who had written a book. Person read the manuscript, and she just said, "There's so much more to your life and your work than what's here." She put me in touch with Catherine Gregory, who is sort of how we connected. But I started working with Catherine as a writing coach, and she gave me a lot of direction in kind of building from my own personal trauma into how that translated into my work and my life and my healing and my ability, to help others to heal from traumatic experiences. experiences. And so I think, that was really the journey of writing, but the journey of healing. I mean, I had been helping others, but I think, that kind of brought it to a different level. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It does. What age were you when you began writing that book?
In my early 70s.
Hey, I didn't know, and looking at you, talking with you, didn't know you were in your 70s. So I thought you were about my age. I am 61.
I wish.
No, honestly, we love where we're at. I mean, we're bringing Oliver hard-earned wisdom to today where we are, and look at who you are and what you're doing now compared to when you were 61. Be proud. You wrote your book in 2020, or
Yes.
that is when I wrote mine too. Didn't finish it until 2 years later. I want to hear about your getting that process, how long it took you.
Well, like I said, I had written for years and had different manuscripts. So the actual process of transforming what I'd written before, writing this, was really about 6 months of working with Catherine, where I think we'd have a Zoom call. I can't remember now if it was every week or maybe not quite that frequently, where I'd have an assignment, I'd take a chapter and we laid it out. I had to really start by which was a challenge, but it was a great thing to do, by identifying my ideal reader. Who was I writing to? Which kind of directs you in a way of what you want to write about, what you want to focus on. So I would say about 6 months, and writing somewhat daily, but working with a coach, and then working with an editor, and then getting published.
For me, when I had my story, I didn't want to do it. And God, that you're doing it. I'm like, I don't know how to do it, and I do not want to admit how horribly I have. He is like to do it. He pulled me into hear your story, and I found writing it, as I said, for it to be not only difficult but cathartic. Did you go through similar things? Was it cathartic, difficult, liberating?
I would say it was cathartic, and I think I feel like it was liberating in the sense that I'm owning my own story. And I knew, that other people in my life, including my siblings and, even my children, would probably have a different interpretation and, of how they saw events or what things happened from their perspective. Just had to get beyond that and say, you know what, this was my experience. This is how I saw it. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, or it's the only way to interpret it or look at it, or the only thing to gain or glean from it. I'm just saying this is my story. And I think think it was a very positive and powerful experience for me because I was owning my own story, but I was also owning my work and the good things that I've done, which I think is hard to do sometimes, but it was positive. I mean, the writing wasn't always easy. I'm not saying that, but
Absolutely. In reading your bio on the questionnaire for today, you talk about all you've done and finish with that you are a proud mom and grandma. That choked me up regardless of all we have overcome and lived in this life. I think we can agree that being a mother is one of the most challenging but rewarding roles we have had.
I agree. But in the end, it's so rewarding.
It is, even though there are moments, lots of moments where we think we won't survive or the kids may not. Because, right, I would love for you to share details on how you work with people to after a workplace tragedy, how you reintroduce or help survivors get back to work.
It's, there are similarities, or I think things that are important components of that healing and return to work, but I also honor that everybody's process is quite unique. For instance, with the people that I worked with at Pettit and Martin, different people were like in the room with people that were shot or almost got shot or ran into the shooter. One person I worked with was actually the one that stopped it, confronted the shooter, believe it or not. He was wounded, but he was fine. It's really hearing everybody out and honoring their story. You might think because maybe you were downstairs in the lobby coming back from lunch and you missed it, that you didn't experience, you didn't see it. It's like, no, you have to honor everybody's experience for what it is, because what happens in a situation like that, as I'm sure it brings up all the other traumas you've ever had in your life, which never go away. I think we just get another opportunity to heal them, deal with them, utilize the lessons in them each time something hard happens, or sometimes when something really good happens, we can bless that we did survive. For some people, it was being at work, being with other people. For other people, it kind of brought a huge life change. Like, what am I doing? There was one lawyer who always wanted to be a judge and had kind of given that up for private practice, who then pursued that. There was somebody that didn't want to be a lawyer at all anymore. So I think it's very different outcome, but I think it's taking the time to really listen to people, bring people together. Some people relate more one-on-one. Some people relate in groups. There's a lot of healing and support that can develop when you have a group of people. And then when they come back to work, they kind of help each other out. I think it's very important to, like at Pettit, to not, clean up the workplace and make it look like nothing ever happened here. I don't think that's the right thing. So to memorialize in some way that people can honor what happened, not as a reminder every day, but as a reminder of what happened here and the people that were lost and all the good people that helped. I remember we ended up having an event where all the police and everybody that was involved, the security people, we all got together. We really shared and talked about that. We get together for several years on different anniversaries on the year of it to honor honor it. So I don't know if I can say this right, but in a way, the value in surviving a trauma like that is what we learn from it, how we take that, how that changes how we relate to people, how we value life, how we use our time, and what our spiritual beliefs are that come out of.
So, yes, I couldn't agree more. And I love saying, what words of wisdom would you like to impart? Also, please tell us again your book that is going to be published and the one that is published and the new one that will be.
Thank you for your positivity about that. I guess parting words of wisdom have to do with facing your fears and don't let your fears control your life, because then the trauma wins. When the trauma is really an opportunity, I think, to grow and change and make a difference. I would say that's my advice, my wisdom. My book that's out and available on Amazon and is From Trauma to Healing: Seeking Solace in Safe Places to Fall. We've talked about that. It is nonfiction, and it is both personal story, but also a lot of advice, I think, about how to heal, what to do, questions to ask yourself, help to get. The book that I'm been writing, the fiction, is called The Greatest Love of All. It's a love story, somewhat of an adventure kind of story, somewhat, in some respects, my own story, but definitely fiction. But I think From Trauma to Healing and in my healing, it really key thing that I think that's changed in my life is really learning about and having unconditional love. And so the greatest love of all definitely has the theme of unconditional love, what that looks like.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Transcending Trauma, the Spiritual Odyssey. If you're working to overcome trauma and would like to work with me or be a guest on my show, contact me through my website at shariroberts.org. Please hit the follow button to make sure you don't miss any episodes. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn at Shari Roberts. You can find all the links in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Shari Roberts, your host, reminding you that you're never alone. Until next time, sending you love and light. Before you go, are you writing a book? My friend Randy gets people book deals with publishers. She's great. You can reach her at author1stop.com.